Welcome to Point of Connections, a podcast dedicated to entrepreneurs in central Wisconsin. We hope you really enjoy this show and this podcast. I wanted to start this podcast because I really am passionate about entrepreneurship. I teach it at the local high school along with personal finance, and I thought this show would be a great way to get in touch with many local entrepreneurs, and maybe it'll even branch across the state or the country. But by interviewing these entrepreneurs, I felt like I'd be able to learn a lot about their processes, what makes them tick, and then also be able to share that with my students. I'm also an entrepreneur myself, so I would be lying if I said I didn't want to learn some things for my own business. But I do think that there is a great spirit within entrepreneurs that most of us can take away something really valuable. In today's episode, we sit down with Steve Brown. He's the owner of Badger Mobile Wash. And he talks to us about all the different things that his business does, how he got started, and then some of his goals moving forward. It's a really interesting conversation, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. There's a video at the beginning that kind of shows what they do, and I would really encourage you to be able to watch that just to kind of see their process and what some of their services are. I really hope you enjoy the show, and I look forward to future episodes. And I hope that if you do know somebody that has a small business or is an entrepreneur, and you think that they'd be great on the show, or maybe that's you, reach out to me at pointofconnections@gmail.com and let's make a connection. I'd love to interview and see what their process is and what we can learn from each other. Thanks, and enjoy the show. In today's episode on Point of Connections, I get to sit down with Steve Brown, owner of Badger Mobile Wash, LLC. Badger Mobile Wash is for the business or the home that wants to show their best curb appeal. Offering services in residential and commercial power washing, Badger Mobile Wash specializes in washing sidewalks, driveways, patios, and all outdoor spaces. They are able to clean wood, vinyl, concrete, and much, much more. If you have a dirty surface, they can clean it with their specialized equipment, experienced, and some high-pressure water. They can help homeowners or businesses put on their best look. So if you have a dirty surface, give Badger a call and see if they can make it look fresh again. In this episode, you will get to learn how Steve got started, how his business works, and some exciting new things on the business horizon. Steve will also share some keys to starting your own business, what made him successful, and some goals for the future. This is a great conversation about small business in central Wisconsin and the entrepreneurial spirit. We hope you enjoy learning about Steve's business as much as we did. Enjoy the show. All right. Hey, welcome to Point of Connections. I'm your host, Jeremy Castleberg, and I'm joined by Steve Brown of Badger Mobile Wash. Steve, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, Jeremy. I look forward to the opportunity to talk with you and share some insight and anything I can provide and help.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And for those of us just joining for the first time, because this is the first episode, we are going to be interviewing different entrepreneurs in the area, finding out what a little bit about their business, what are some of the things that they do, what are some of the things that make them successful, and kind of how they got started. So why don't you start us off, Steve, with just a kind of history of yourself before you got into Badger Mobile Wash, and then what kind of led you to that, and then we'll kind of get into the business.
Sure. Well, I'm 50 years old, and I've had a wide variety of jobs in my past working for other people, everything from sales and marketing, management, finance, restoration, employment. So different capacities, whether it be sales management, in a variety of different industries, construction, banking, restoration, those kinds of things. So, a very, I guess, diverse background, which has kind of always led me to feel like the ultimate goal and purpose of all those experiences have led me to where I am today, to be able to wear a wide variety of hats and make a variety of different, decisions in different areas. And because, at every hour of the day, it's a different hat you have to wear. So it keeps it fun and exciting. That's for sure.
That's very true. Now, in a previous life, you and I actually were coworkers together at a financial institution in town. So that was pretty cool. So that's kind of how we got to know each other.
Yes.
So what led you to wanting to get into the pressure washing business?
This is a great story. Kind of lengthy, but I'll share it anyway because
Hey, that's all
everybody's
right.
situation is unique and different. And we were on spring break, and my at that time 13-year-old son, we're just kind of lounging in the pool, and he said, summer's coming, and I want to start making money. My son Cooper, he loves to fish. So he's,
Nice.
looking for, the latest fishing rods and lures and, would like a boat someday, of course. And so I said, well, I guess, at 13, maybe we could go home, print some flyers out, and you can mow some lawns. And we'll just do something like that in the neighborhood. Well, that night I'm in bed and I'm on Facebook looking at, different groups and different posts. And, this is in the middle of March, and somebody had made a request in the Stevens Point Happening Now, hey, is there a company out there that picks up after dogs, after the wintertime? You got all these little landmines, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
I thought, I got an idea for Cooper. I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to
I'm
start
sure he loved
Cooper's.
that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, he was really excited. So we started Cooper's Pooper Scooper business, number
Oh my
one in the
gosh.
number two business. So that's what we had on
That's
our little
clever.
business cards, and we created a Facebook page. And before you knew it, we had at least 30 customers. And it just slowly built. Every weekend, every Saturday, Sunday, we would go out with our shovels and buckets, and I'd tote them
Wow.
around town, and we would build this business. And then it got to the point where, we're post COVID. My daughter got really sick, and she had spent a couple of
Hmm.
weeks in the children's hospital doing a
Well, sorry to hear
variety of
that.
tests and different things. And, the medical bills just were incredible. Even though we had insurance, I don't know what we could do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
business was profitable, but it wasn't going to pay those bills. So what I ended up doing is getting Cooper involved, and we ended up selling the business to another company that was doing the same thing, that was looking to grow.
Hmm.
So I took the money that we got from that, and I bought my first enclosed trailer. At that time, one of my customers was an insurance agent, and he had a nice big camper, and he said, I hate washing that thing every spring. Can you wash it for me and wax it? I'm like, well, sure, we can do anything. And so I kind of started doing some research, what it would cost, and looking at equipment. And I thought, wow, maybe we could just go around campsites and, campgrounds and wash campers.
That's
And,
good. Yeah.
it just kind of led to more and more things. I mean, even now, after being in the business for a year and a half, it amazes me how many new things and opportunities come up that need washing, whether it be soft washing or pressure washing, and there's a difference. But it's amazing to me just how many opportunities are out there for things to get cleaned and washed. So um, that's kind of how things evolved and where I got to where I am today. So it kind of found me versus me seeking it. It just through lots of research, lots of time. I think I spent 2 hours a night every night for 6 months just researching the details and the techniques and the chemicals and the mix ratios. And there's a lot to it. But yeah, that's kind of the progression
Hmm.
that it took.
So it's not as simple as just you grabbing a pressure washer and going to town.
I can tell you, I did one like 4 or 5 years ago. Just kind of, I had a little Craftsman one I would use at home on the deck, and I had a gal reach out to me that owned a salon, and she said, "Can you pressure washer it for me?" And I'm sure, I'll go out and clean it, and we did, and it turned out halfway decent. I look back now and be like, "Well, we really could have done a lot different," but she was happy, and that was kind of my first taste of there might be more of that. So
No kidding.
yeah,
So what is something about the business that most people wouldn't? I mean, obviously, I'm an ignoramus to it. So what would be something that the average layperson may not realize about what you do in the pressure washing business?
sure. Well, there's residential and commercial aspects. So
Okay.
from a residential aspect, the chemicals that are used, the processes, and the things that you look for as to not to damage a home. So a lot of people will do it themselves, and I get that it's inexpensive. It might take somebody a whole Saturday or maybe a whole weekend, depending on how much they're cleaning.
Hmm.
But there's weep holes, and the way siding is laid, you can get water behind, and you can do damage. And there's the soffit and fascia, where you can potentially put water into an attic, and there's different tips, different chemicals. There's oxidation on siding that can occur, and it can, after washing it, you can make it look dull if you don't recognize what oxidation is. And so, setting that expectation with the customer up front, and putting eyes on a project are very helpful. So, one of the things that I do is make sure that I meet with each homeowner that wants a quote, or wants to learn a little bit more. So it's a little bit more of an educational piece, and there's more to it than one would think. And so,
Sure.
you add all those things up, depending on the home and the value and what the customer is looking to accomplish, you want to hire a professional.
Yeah, fair enough. So, tell me a little bit about how you started to grow your business. Was it was it word of mouth? Did you use a lot of social media? I mean, I don't want you to give away all your trade secrets, but what did you, to somebody out there that's like, man, I'd like to start whatever business that might be. What are some things that you found success in that you thought was pretty good for your business?
Sure. Well, you can go back to, the poop scooping business, or all my previous experiences. And the biggest thing my biggest takeaway, I guess, is relationship building. That's what sales is, and we can go on a whole nother topic and tangent on the selling processes and different things like that. But just having a network of friends and building relationships. So the first thing that made me leave my job full time to pursue this full time was I was able to land a commercial project that was very large. In fact, it took me to get at least 5 or 6 additional people to help out on this particular project that would occur every 3 weeks.
Wow.
And so I started getting my friends involved, and just kind of through networking through friends, we would knock out this project in 2 days, 2 10-hour days. It's initially started out as, and we showed up on time. We did a good job, and we kept learning and growing, and consistently did that. Well, obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket, because this was really the only thing, but it was enough to allow me to do it independently and not have a full-time job anymore. So that's what kickstarted me being able to go off on my own. So what that did was really remove a lot of the risk. So there's a lot of people there that might be working full time and doing something as a side gig or a side hustle, and at what point do you make that transition to doing it full time, or do I continue doing it part time? And so there's a lot of factors in that. My kids are older. I have all but one in the house now, so that that risk is marginalized a little bit.
Sure.
So that helps. So it's kind of a perfect storm. In a sense, but everybody's situation is different, and I would never say, don't take that risk. High risk, high reward. I was low risk, high reward, and that's just what the circumstances were. And then, word of mouth and networking, and just taking all my past experiences, I've been able to grow the business to allowing residential work and a lot of commercial work. To where it's probably now it shifts basically month to month. June through August is probably our heavy residential time period. And then the rest of the year is all our commercial work. And we do stay very busy in the wintertime. In fact, I'm more busy in the wintertime than I am in the summertime.
No kidding. You think you wouldn't be able to pressure wash in the winter? How does that work?
Yeah, so I have 2 enclosed trailers with diesel heaters in them, and then I've insulated them so that I keep my equipment good. There's different pump savers you can use because you don't want the water to freeze in the pump. You don't want hoses to freeze when they're outside, so we use hot water. But we do a lot of like restaurant hood cleaning, which is now a separate entity as of this last month. And then we have commercial projects. We're currently working on a 4-phase project with a diesel machine shop. They're getting new equipment, getting the old equipment out. The building's 40 years old, has never been cleaned inside. So we're doing ceilings, walls, the floor, heavy grease, heavy buildup. It needs hot water degreaser, all those things. So those are kind of some of the projects that we're working on throughout the wintertime. And yeah. So
if nobody's ever seen what you do, obviously they're going to see a little bit at the beginning of this, but they can always head over to your website too. But it's what a lot of people call very satisfying because there's like these lines that you make and it's clean afterwards. I've heard a lot of students, they'll watch those and they're like, oh, it's really satisfying. I teach, by the way. So then it's like, that's what, but I've heard that. So talk about that a little bit. Obviously that building that you're cleaning out, I bet you it's pretty satisfying to see some of that stuff come off the walls and off the ceiling and off the floors.
It's funny you say that because that is exactly what every one of my employees says to me. That was such a satisfying day, at the end of the day. And
Yep.
yes, when you see that filth and everything, it's they take so much pride in their work when they can see what they've been able to accomplish. And so
I bet.
One of the things you'll see more or less more on my Facebook page than my website are before and after pictures. And that's one of the things I try to do is as we're doing a project with a customer, they might be at home and we're outside. I'll send them pictures before and after before we do a final walkthrough. And they love that. They love to see the progress and what you're doing. But it is highly satisfying. I myself spend time in the field still doing it just because it is so satisfying. And I like to get out there and rinse stuff. But
no, that's the way I look at it. I was introduced to it on, I think it was YouTube or whatever. They just started showing up and I interacted. So then I saw more of them. And that's the thing I always thought was like, man, how do they get it to just come off so clean? But that's the trade secret behind what you do to make it look really good. So, and the before and afters are phenomenal. I mean, I've seen yours and then some others I've seen, they look very different. If you've never seen it, you definitely want to check it out. It's a marked difference.
Oh yeah, I know. There's on Facebook. There's a gentleman that will go around and do people's yards for free. He'll, trim them up, clean them up, and it could be a real elderly person, and he does it for free. And of course, all the viewers and the advertising and everything, takes care of that. But it is highly satisfying. No matter what field it's in, if you're window cleaning or landscaping or there's so many different things that you can do that take a lot of pride in your work, and seeing those before and afters is. There's a lot of reels on Facebook where you can see that as well. And it's fun to watch.
That's cool. So tell me something that you're really excited about with your industry. There's got to be, all industries are going through change. What's something that's kind of coming that you anticipate or maybe, without it giving anything too away, what are something that you're really excited about?
Well, I think a lot has to do with technology. Technology changes, so quick. I mean, you think back to when we were kids to now, how much has changed. And then, from now to when we're going to be 70 or 80, what are things going to look like, now with AI and everything else. But technology and equipment, processes, equipment helps us to be more efficient. You see, it's not new, but there's a drone pressure washing. Where you can scale buildings. You're not climbing on walls or scaling from rooftops. And you can wash windows with the drone, water towers, sky rises, stadiums.
No kidding.
The number of applications are incredible. I mean, there's times, and I don't know if you saw the picture or not, but, there's times where we have to rent a boom truck to get to certain peaks on houses. There's cobwebs, there's, hornet's nests way up in the peak and corner. And, you can use extension wands and a higher pressure and try to knock it down, but that doesn't always do the job. So we've had to do that a couple of times with some of the larger homes. So equipment is always a factor. And then you get into real specifics where, there's proportioners that will dictate the percentage of chemical you need to use on a project, whether it's sodium hypochlorite or some kind of a bleaching agent or a degreaser, or if you're doing fleet washes, there's a two-step process where chemicals interact to get rid of road grime and, things of that nature. So that technology and process improvement are constantly changing. And I think that's pretty much true in any industry. So it's not really any different for ours. The equipment pounding that we do on our machines every day, the Honda engines are great. And, there's certain things that certain people like and, are grown accustomed to. And you find just better quality products, with using hot water, you can blow holes in your lines a lot. So, purchasing, high grade quality double braided hoses are important. And And those are just things you learn along the way, because you have to start somewhere. You can't start with the
Yeah.
best, And like I said, I started out with a little Craftsman pressure washer, and now I've got huge trailers and lots of equipment and things that I've invested in just to make my business grow and be able to handle the jobs that come in.
Yeah, that's cool. So that kind of leads me into one of my next questions, which what are some of your goals? You said you've been in it for about a year and a half. Obviously, you've grown to the point where now you've given up any other employment. It's your full-time gig. You're spending hours after you're done jobs to research and make the business better. What are some of the goals that you're trying to hit in your business?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jeremy, because I don't know. It has moved at lightning speed that I just within the last couple of months started thinking, what is my end game? Is it number of employees? Is it a revenue goal? Is it a growth
Yeah,
goal? Um, I can't tell you what that looks like yet,
it's fair.
because the whole point of becoming an entrepreneur, you create your own wealth, you create your own hours. It ends up being something that you're so passionate about. And one of the things that I've learned in life is balance.
Hmm.
I have a family, I'm married,
Yep.
and that balance is different for everybody. And I want to make sure that I don't leave those things behind, or when my final son moves out of the house, I don't look at my wife and say, who are you?
Who are you? Yeah.
So
No,
you
isn't
got to
that
be
something that? Oh, go ahead.
you got to be cognizant of those things. And so
Yeah.
I don't know. I had thought about franchising, and then you think about the brand that you build and the quality that you want
Yeah.
out there in the community, and then you think, well, gee, if I got a bad business owner, what does that do to the brand? And so there's
Yeah.
certain risks with doing that, and so possibly outsourcing, and I named it Badger Mobile Wash because one, we're mobile, we can go wherever. We're located in
Hmm.
the middle of the state, so really we can go anywhere in the state within a 2.5 hour drive. And I used Badger in the state of Wisconsin because I didn't want to limit myself to a specific area, but I
Sure.
wanted a good creative name that people could relate to. So
Yep.
I put a lot of thought into the name. I as of yet don't regret changing it or anything like that. So I
That's
definitely
it's a
want to
good
keep
one.
it. And so I don't have an answer for you.
No, that's fine.
For that, it's kind of open at the moment. And my oldest son's 22, and he's involved in the business. And I just kind of want to create something I can leave behind. For the
Yeah.
family, keep it a family business, and just keep it honest, ethical, and just do the right thing by our customers. And I don't want to lose that. So if that means I grow to a certain level, I grow to a certain level.
Yeah, what you just hit on is such an important point that, as I've dabbled in entrepreneurship and I currently, I teach right now, but it's one of those things where having a goal, I understand what you're saying. It's tough because you don't know exactly how, sometimes it's hard to know how big it can grow. And so it's like, you don't want to take on too much. You want to have a personal life. You want to have, like you said, I would love for my wife to know who I am at the end of all this. So, but it's always a balance. And that's a real struggle, I think, for entrepreneurs, because knowing you and as you started this business, I can see in you that there's that passion. Like you want to, like a lot of entrepreneurs, you want to see how far you can take it and what can
Yeah.
we do and what new service could we add. And but then you always have to balance the, like, well, should we add it? Is it something that we want to do? So I can definitely respect that. That's a tough challenge for any entrepreneur as they're going through it. Now, did you kind of adapt at first the hedgehog theory? I don't know if you ever read The Good to Great, where they basically say, like, really get good at one thing and then branch out, or did you kind of dabble in a jack of all trades, master of none, but better than master of none of one, yeah, mentality?
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned a little bit earlier in our conversation, there's so many different routes and so many different things that you're unaware of that need to be washed. I mean, we've done rail cars for a railroad company.
No
Uh,
kidding.
yeah, we do washouts. Same with tractor
Hmm.
trailers. Here,
Okay.
you have a large potato growing community in our
Yeah.
area, and so there's a lot of transportation with trucks, and so each one, there's different profit margins, there's different machine capabilities, there's different chemicals, there's different price points. There's a lot of things to consider. And so I had to learn and you learn by doing,
Hmm.
in working with, customers and going through those processes in those different areas and find out, okay, now this upcoming year, I'm at a point where I can kind of pick and choose which areas I want to do where I'm going to be more profitable with consideration of how many people do I have, what we're looking at, and taking a look at things on a whole level, um, where I might be able to dabble. So you kind of have to do that in order
Yeah.
to know specifically which path you're going to take and focus on. So at the end of the day, and I know that phrase gets used a lot, but it comes down to just taking care, of your customer. And so no matter who we work with or what, I mean, we have a great working relationship and people understand if you need to move on or not do certain things just because it was small. And when you're
Yeah.
first starting, you do those things because, you know, that's what you have to do. But then as the business grows and you learn more, you kind of have to move on from that. So,
Yeah. That makes sense. So, one question I've had for you with all the chemicals that you must have to use and things, do you run into a lot of ecological type issues when you go and wash a property, or is there a lot of government regulation that you run into?
yes, great question. Again, it's something that you end up learning and doing research on.
Okay.
You have the Department of Natural Resources and Chemicals, certain commercial projects where you have to reclaim the water,
Mm,
and then there's some situations where you work with a commercial client and they don't want you to use chemical for that reason, but still reclaim the water based on the surfaces that you're cleaning or what you're doing. So it really varies on, yes, the chemicals that you're using, what the application is, and then what the requirements are for that. So, like rail car is extremely particular as far as what
hmm.
chemicals and how you extract the water or reclaim it, however you want to phrase it. So there's different protocol that is required, to do those projects. So um,
Interesting.
yeah, I put that all into my scope of work when I work with these clients and put together proposals and things, to make sure that I know what we're doing and what is expected, and same on their side. They want to make sure that I'm compliant
Yeah.
and can follow that. So yeah, it's a great question because the chemical piece of the business is a whole nother animal. There is so much to learn. Even just keeping forms within arm's reach. If I got pulled over, and I'm
Huh.
carrying chemicals down the road, you have to be compliant and have all that information. Or if my truck caught on fire or something, is there explosive material? Is it combustible?
Right.
Is it there's so much to it.
Now, is there anything you'd like to see? Not that you'd want the regulations to go away, but anything the business climate or the community could do a little bit better with to make it easier to run your business, or is it been pretty straightforward?
Yeah,
It
it,
seems like those
it,
regulations would be confusing.
Yeah. The biggest thing is just making sure you understand cause and effect, I guess.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to mention too is that, we're working with water, and the
Hmm.
more you dilute, the less you pollute. So when we're washing houses, we'll do a pre-rinse around, all the shrubs, flowers, things of that nature, the grass, whatever the landscaping might be. And then when we do the house wash, then we do a post rinse as well. So that
Okay.
chemical that we use is pretty minimal, but it is so diluted that it's safe for pets. It's safe to walk on. It's not going to kill the grass,
Well,
and
that's
and
good.
that comes with experience because there's a lot of guys out there that run around with pressure washers in their truck and they don't have that experience or know-how, or they end up learning the hard way. And a customer calls them back 2 days later and says, "Hey, my front lawn's gone. It's burnt." And what happened? So you got to be careful of those kinds of things. But
Huh.
yeah,
Okay.
there's not really any roadblocks. It makes sense. You want to protect the environment which you're working in and make sure you're using the right chemicals and the right application, and just making sure you have an understanding of that and educating the customer to know that too, because
Hmm.
you might be putting up a bid against a couple other people, and you got to point out what your differences are.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, cool. So I got to ask you then. You've done this. You're a year and a half in. what advice would you give to somebody that's looking, they've got the idea, the itch, they want to be their own boss. Maybe they're working for somebody else, but they want to start, like you said, a side hustle or what advice could you give to somebody looking to start their own business? Because I've got right now probably about 45 students in an entrepreneurship class that are thinking about, hey, what if I could go do something? What advice would you give them to get started?
Go do it. Do it.
Love it.
I look back and I'm like, oh, I wish I knew this when I was 20. But then again, I wouldn't have had all the other experiences that I had to get me to the point where, I could be, grow at the scale that I've been able to grow. But I would say if you have the opportunity when you're young and you don't have, a lot of commitments maybe or financial commitments, to go ahead and do that, research as much as you can. It's better to know your market, your competition better than your own business. Really engage in learning as much as you can because, knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's so many factors, it's like you look at a Snicker bar. Snicker bars have been around forever. They're a very popular selling candy bar. It's got a great brand. And there's so many ingredients that make up that successful bar that the same would go to an entrepreneur. There's a lot of things that you have to know and research and understand. Like I said earlier, that, one day I might have my attorney hat on, my accounting hat on, my HR hat on, my sales hat on, my technician hat on. I've learned small engine repair. I can clean a carburetor. I can switch out engines and pumps. And so, that's never my thing, but it's like, hey, I'm proud I can learn it and do it. YouTube University is a great tool. But I think the one thing from an educational standpoint, because, you mentioned you're a teacher, is basically teaching them how to think, not what to think, but how to think.
Agreed.
And, you can say all you want, but, like you get into these Facebook groups that I'm on and everybody has an opinion on this and that. And you really kind of have to decipher what is it you really want to gain and know and be able to select out of all that information that's out there, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or out of a book or listening to, a podcast, whatever it might be, because there's so much information out there. How do you critically think about what you need to get accomplished, what you need to get done? So, you got to have a game plan. You're going to be one person in a canoe rowing in circles, and not going in any direction if you don't make the changes needed. So you got to have a blueprint, and it doesn't have to be a full-fledged business plan. Yes, you want to do that if you need financing, you need to go to a bank, but, and it's one thing to create that, but then it's another thing to go back and look at that quarterly maybe or monthly and just making sure that you're on track and create some checks and balances or, KPIs, there's so much to running it that it's more than I've got an idea and I want to do it. That's a great start. It's a great attitude. You hire attitude and train skill. So you get the person that has that entrepreneurial spirit, but there's a lot that goes into it. So, and the other thing I would recommend is find a mentor and surround yourself with good, positive people that are going to support you, because you're going to get discouraged. You're going to hear no. You're going to run into all these things. So it's just like picking friends in life. You got to surround yourself with the right people and have a good mentor, someone that you can trust and look up to, and someone that can kind of guide you. Parent, friend, maybe another business owner, whatever it might be, just somebody within your circle, that you can bounce things off of and trust, I think is really important as you make that leap from, maybe a full-time job to being an entrepreneur or, doing your side gig or side hustle, whatever it might be, or whatever you want to call it. But I guess that's kind of what I would recommend.
No, I like that. And, one of the things you've hit on right at the beginning that I just heard somebody say this the other day, and I wholeheartedly agree. And I bring this up in my classes a lot, is don't be afraid to make mistakes and move quick. Like you said, just go do it, because in the end, I heard somebody talking about saying, we spend, and I tend to be this way. So I tell my students, I'm guilty of this, where I'll sit and think about stuff and I'll be like, well, what if I did this? And what if I did this? And I spend so much time thinking about it. I'm not doing it. And I need to just go out and do it and make a mistake and learn from it and then adjust very quickly. And so what they were saying is, go out, make mistakes, just start acting, and you're actually better off. The research has shown that to just go out and act and do things. And then if you make mistakes, adjust very quickly and learn from it. And that's better than sitting back and, just going through it. Now, obviously you want to kind of think through your process, but so there's a balance there, but on the same side, it's like, just go do it. Right. And I love that advice. I think that's excellent. You gotta act.
Yeah. I mean, you got to plan, you got to minimize those things, but you're right. I mean, the only way you're really going to learn, go out and get your teeth kicked in. That's what it was in sales.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not afraid to talk to anybody or go anywhere. And, it takes time, and it's rejection, and it's learning how to cope with that. And, nowadays there's, a lot of people that have ADHD or, all these different things that can, come into play, but people can use that to their advantage.
Oh, for sure.
And you got to know yourself and how you learn, how you function. And once you know that and be able to apply that in real life, no matter what you do, no matter what business that you start, just learning how you function and what's going to make you successful. Like, I know I have this problem. I'm paralysis of analysis. I overthink and I don't do. Okay, well, knowing that, what are you going to do different?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You're exactly right. And a lot of people can get bogged down in the process.
Yeah, that is very true. All right, those are awesome. Now, you gave me some advice, but I'm going to challenge you here on one other thing. Could you give specific skill sets that you think make for a really good entrepreneur? Like when you look at yourself and you think, hey, I'm either, I'm really detailed or I'm hardworking. What are some like 3 specific traits that you think are great for entrepreneurs? We just talked about this in my entrepreneurship class. And I'd be curious what you'd think. Like if you were saying, hey, these are 3 skills that I think every entrepreneur should have. And maybe you need to develop it, right? Maybe it's not innate to you and you need to, like you just said, you got to go out and be able to talk to anybody. Give me 3, like, hey, these are things you need to be a successful entrepreneur.
Wow, 3. There's a lot of good, important ones. The first thing I would think would be critical is passion, drive, and competitiveness kind of rolled into one. Like, you got to have that fire, because you're going to wake up one morning and be like, I'm tired. I mean, all summer long, I'm out washing houses and we're sun up to sundown, and, you skip lunch, or skip dinner, or you just have to have that fire in your belly. You have to. Yeah. And if it's not there, I love that. I'm sorry, it's not going to work out for you, because you're going to get discouraged and that flame's going to burn out. So you got to have that competitive nature. I think you have to, so love people that played in sports or, things like that are always very helpful. Whether you're an entrepreneur at 18 or 50 or 40, it doesn't matter. Just competitive, you play games with your kids, you got to win.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that still.
Yeah, right. So, that, I think your attitude, speaks volumes. You can have a podcast on attitude. You can have a podcast on sales. There's so many ingredients that make up that Snicker bar that we refer to. Yeah. Organized. You're only as good as you are organized. And, if I were to pan around my office and you could see, my file, I mean, a lot of my wintertime when I'm in my office, I'm organizing my computer files, my work files, my processes, how I communicate jobs to the guys in the field at the shop. I ended up getting a big screen TV and a calendar, and everybody's got Google access, and, they come to the shop, they look at the screen, they know where they're going, they grab the work order, check it off. They know what's there. They know what chemicals to grab. I printed out sheets, what to pack in the trailers, and each trailer's packed a little differently. So whatever the business is, just, you have to be organized, even yourself. Like, every day, I have a little to-do list and I still write it down. And I carry that with me. And, it's a great feeling when you check off stuff,
it's the best.
There's nothing like that, and it's like, it helps me mentally bring clarity to what I do, because I'll be all over the place, So again, it's just realizing who you are, how you operate, and what you need to do to be successful. And that's going to be different for everybody. Cool.
Hey, I love that. Anything else you'd like to add before we end this that you'd like to share with the aspiring entrepreneur, or just customers, potential customers out there? Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes America great is the fact that we have the ability to start a small business, and it's what makes America grow. You look at Nike, you look at Bill Gates' story, you look at how McDonald's started. They all started
Yeah.
small, and
Yep.
they grew it to a certain point, and it took a different brain to take it to the next level. And to and those are great, fun stories to look at and to read about and to learn from. And we have all the ability in the world to do what we want to accomplish. It's just going out and getting it done. And it's a great feeling. I love working for myself. I love that. There's a place for corporate culture. I try to create a certain culture within my company. It's just different. There's no right or wrong. But if you have an idea or of a concept and you wholeheartedly believe in it, go out and do it. Give it a try. Especially if it's something new or, and if it doesn't work out, you learn one thing that doesn't and move on to another. If you're an entrepreneur, you're gonna find it. You're gonna find a way to make it happen, get it done. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what comes to mind right away. I encourage everybody
Awesome.
to take that leap if they can, and I think that's kind of a direction where a lot of successful businesses are going. It's small business. Um,
Yep. No,
you
I,
know,
I think it's a heartbeat of the United States, like you said.
yes.
So, um, where can people follow you or learn more about you, Steve, and your business, Badger Mobile Wash? Want to list that off to you? Facebook, Instagram? What do we got?
Yeah, my website would be a good starting place, and that's
Okay.
badgermobilewashllc.com. You can find me on Facebook as well. I try to post a lot about some of the projects that I'm doing on an ongoing basis and what we're up to and where we're at. And I've got a lot of ideas and things to keep it interesting and keep it engaging. That's a constant process that's always changing, but that's where they can kind of find out about me, or if anybody ever wants to call or ask questions, I'm available. I want to be able to teach people what I've learned, because I wish that happened to me when I was younger, that I had
Yeah.
someone be that mentor. That's really important. I mean, I think everybody needs a
Yeah.
cheerleader in their life, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. You just need somebody
Yep.
to encourage you and stay positive and focused.
Yeah, totally agree. No, that's excellent. I will put that information in the show notes as well. So if you didn't catch that and you want to see those direct links, I'll have the website, contact information all in the show notes as well. So Steve, hey, really enjoyed it. It was great to learn about your business. I've known about it for a while, but it's been awesome to even learn more. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I enjoy being part of this process, and if one person can be affected by it, then it was worthwhile.
Awesome. Well, thank you. You have a good night.
Thank you. Do the same.